Last weekend offered a number of great games. Although it's impossible to top the matchups from last week, this weekend actually has a very strong slate of games. I was actually pretty shocked when I saw all the ranked matchups for this weekend. So here are the 10 games I'm looking forward to the most for week 5. We get a pretty solid ranked matchup on Friday night as number 10 Utah travels to take on number 19 Oregon State. We'll start with Utah as this is going to be a pretty interesting one for them. Through 4 games, they have still yet to get Cam Rising back as he continues to recover from an ACL injury. As of the time of this recording, it's uncertain as to whether or not he's going to be playing. Utah is still 4-0 and they're 1-0 in conference play, but the Utes just haven't really looked that good this season. Again, they're undefeated, but they haven't looked as dominant as we've seen Utah teams look in the past. So if Cameron Rising returns, then this game will get really interesting. But if he doesn't, I don't know if Utah can win one more game with Nate Johnson at the helm. Then you switch over to Oregon State, who's coming off a pretty tough 3-point loss on the road at Washington State. Still, the Beavers have been really solid this season, and they're ranked inside the top 20. Plus, playing at home in Corvallis is going to give them the edge on a Friday night. This is a huge game for both of these teams because with so many great teams in the Pac-12 this season, every win over a conference opponent you can get is going to be massive. If Utah picks up the victory, they're going to be 2-0 in conference play, and they're going to be in the driver's seat for a potential Pac-12 title spot. If Oregon State loses, they're going to be 0-2 in conference play, and you can pretty much wipe them out of Pac-12 title contention. But if Oregon State wins, they're right back in the hunt of things. The hype in this game died down just a little, but this should still be a thrilling contest. Number 8 USC travels on the road to take on Colorado. We'll start with USC, who's ranked number 8 in the country and is undefeated. They're still alive in their national championship push, and they have a pretty interesting game ahead of them. You look at Colorado, and they're coming off an embarrassing loss on the road at Oregon. Once again, they're a 21-point underdog, but this time they're at home. USC is by far the much better team, but the one reason I think Colorado might be able to hang around in this game is because of how bad USC's defense is. I mean, the Trojans just allowed the Sun Devils to score 28 points after Fresno State held that team scoreless. If Colorado has any chance of winning this game, they're going to have to be in a shootout that ends something like 54-49. Still, I think USC walks away with the victory, but I definitely think Colorado can light up the fireworks and make this one really fun. Number 24 Kansas travels to take on number 3 Texas. Now, although this is a battle between 2 undefeated teams, the Longhorns are actually a 17-point favorite in this game. Kansas has one of the best offenses in all of college football this season, as they're averaging just under 500 yards per contest. They're also one of just 3 teams that are undefeated in the Big 12, joining Texas and Oklahoma. You look at Texas, and they have a fantastic offense and a fantastic defense, so I'm a little surprised that the spread is this high in this game. I definitely think the Longhorns should be favored, but I think the Kansas can give the Longhorns a run for their money and really make this an interesting game. I think by having quarterback Jalen Daniels gives them a legitimate chance. Not to mention, we've seen recently in years past that Kansas is capable of beating Texas. Another ranked match that should be a lot of fun is number 13 LSU going on the road to take on number 20 Ole Miss. LSU has looked damn good since their Week 1 loss to Florida State as they've won 3 games in a row. Jaden Daniels is a Heisman caliber quarterback as the Tigers have one of the best offenses in all of college football. You flip things over to Ole Miss and they're coming off a loss on the road to Alabama in which the offense didn't show up. Still, this is an offense that's really good as they're averaging just under 500 yards of offense per game. This is going to be a pretty big matchup when it comes to the SEC title game. LSU is currently 2-0 in conference, and if they pick up a 3rd win, that's going to give them the edge over a number of other teams. With Ole Miss already being 0-1 in conference play, a loss here would pretty much wipe out their chances of playing in that SEC title game. If Ole Miss is able to pick up a victory and having the tiebreaker over LSU, well, that could give them some momentum towards the rest of the season. Before I get to the rest of the games, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you can join one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Number 11 Notre Dame travels to take on number 17 Duke. For the Blue Devils, this is a pretty big day as it's the first time they're ever hosting College Game Day, so Wallace Wade Stadium is going to be rocking. You look at Notre Dame and they're coming off a heartbreaking loss at home to Ohio State this past weekend. Like I talked about in previous videos, Notre Dame looked like the better team for majority of that game, so it made that loss that much more heartbreaking. Is there a chance that the Irish actually lose 2 games in a row? Well, it's definitely possible because this is a really good Duke team. They're 4-0 on the season, and it's looking like they're not a fluke. With that being said, although the Blue Devils are 4-0, they've played absolutely nobody since they knocked off Clemson in week 1. Sure, that was an impressive victory against the Tigers, but if those two teams met again, I don't think Duke would win by 21. Since that game, Duke has played Lafayette, Northwestern, and Connecticut, not exactly great teams by any means. I still think Duke's going to be able to hang in there, but it really seems hard to believe that Notre Dame's going to lose once again. Number 22, Florida travels to take on Kentucky, and the Wildcats are actually the favorite in this game. Although they're not ranked, Kentucky is 4-0, and they've been one of the more surprising teams in the SEC this season. They're one of only 2 teams that is still undefeated, joining Georgia. Florida did have that impressive victory against Tennessee a couple weeks ago, but outside of the Utah game, we haven't really seen them play anybody, so this will be a huge test for Graham Mertz and this Gators team. The same could be said about Kentucky, as they haven't really played anybody either. I mean, I guess you could say their toughest opponent was this weekend when they played Vanderbilt and beat them by 17 points on the road. Devin Leary's having a solid first season in Kentucky after transferring from NC State. He's thrown for over 1,000 yards with 9 passing touchdowns. Another thing to look forward to in this game is that both of these defenses are among some of the best in all of the SEC and in all of college football. Florida's allowing only 245 yards of offense a game, meanwhile Kentucky is averaging fewer than 300 yards a game as well. This might be a gross game that finishes something like 21-17, but I think it's going to be a competitive game from start to finish. Number 1, Georgia travels to take on Auburn, who is having a solid season so far. The Tigers are 3-1, but they're coming off a pretty bad loss on the road to Texas A&M this past weekend. Meanwhile, with Georgia, they're 4-0, they've looked fantastic, but they haven't really played anybody yet. I guess you could say South Carolina was a tough opponent, and that was a game that Georgia actually struggled in, so this will probably be their toughest test of the season so far, as they gotta go on the road to Auburn. The Bulldogs are currently a 14.5 point favorite, so this is expected to be a comfortable victory. Still, I wouldn't be shocked if the Tigers can hang in there and really make Georgia earn this one. Clemson is 2-2, and they travel to take on an undefeated Syracuse Orange team. Clemson was just a couple plays away from being 3-1 on the season and probably being a top 20 team, but both times Clemson has played a solid team this year, they've lost. Meanwhile, you look at Syracuse, and they are 4-0, and they've been impressive this season, but they haven't really played anybody just yet. They did go on the road and play Purdue a couple of weeks ago, but Purdue's not looking like a great team at all. So this should be the first true test for the Syracuse team. They're one of a handful of undefeated teams still in the ACC, and if they're able to start conference play 1-0, this could give them a huge advantage towards making the ACC title game. Meanwhile, with Clemson, they're already 0-2 in conference play, and a third loss would completely derail their chances. But if they're able to pick up a victory, maybe they're able to get hot the rest of the way, get a couple losses from a couple other teams, and keep their ACC title hopes alive. One of the better rivalries we get every year is Texas A&M and Arkansas playing at Jerry World in Dallas. Both of these teams aren't ranked, but that doesn't matter, as this game usually is one of the more competitive ones out there. As of right now, the Aggies are a 6.5 point favorite, and that does seem a little bit interesting because I think Arkansas is a solid squad. Texas A&M had a very impressive 17-point victory at home against Auburn this past weekend. Meanwhile, you look at Arkansas, they've lost back-to-back games, but they've lost both of those games by a combined 10 points. If honestly a couple plays go their way against LSU and BYU, this is a team that's probably 4-0 and ranked inside the top 25. Both of these teams have great offenses, so I wouldn't be surprised if the game comes down to one of the final possessions. We'll wrap up today's video with a very underrated game that takes place on Friday night. 4-0 Louisville travels on the road to take on 3-1 NC State. I know there are a lot of solid teams in the ACC this season, but Louisville might be the team that's been slept on the most. They're 4-0, and they're 2-0 in conference play, joining Florida State as the only other conference team with 2 wins in conference play. They've looked great so far this year, as they boast one of the best offenses in all of college football, as they average 550 yards a game. But looking at their schedule, they don't really have any impressive victories, so this will probably be their first true test against NC State. Although they lost a couple weeks ago to Notre Dame, this is still a Wolfpack team that is 3-1 and is also 1-0 in conference play as well. I know we talk about teams like Florida State State, Duke, North Carolina, Miami, and Clemson when it comes to the ACC, but whichever team picks up a win here will still be undefeated in conference play, and they'll be well alive to reach the ACC title game. Well, those are the 10 games I'm looking forward to the most this weekend. Which game are you most excited for? Or was there a game that should be on everyone's radar that I didn't include in this list? Whatever game that is, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.